Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Emmanuel, I'm a former Boeing 737 pilot and a member of PMDG's tech team. In today's video I want to talk about non-precision approaches and when it is appropriate to use the IAN mode and when you should rather use LNAV and VNAV to conduct those non-precision approaches. In order to demonstrate this, I have chosen the RNP-AR approach runway 20 at Tegucigalpa Airport. Now this one, as you can see, comes in with quite an offset on the arrival, as there is terrain right in front of the runway. And for this very reason, on this particular approach, we are going to use LNAV and VNAV. Now, to understand exactly why we gotta use one or the other, so that you can make your own informed decisions about it, we need to quickly understand the difference between the two. On a lot of airliners, you can use approach mode for all approaches. On the 737 that is not the case. First of all, the IAN mode is only available on very few 737s in real life. In the PMDG it is unfortunately not an option, but much rather it is something that is installed in all aircraft. In the real world I know exactly one airline that actually has the mode installed at all, because everybody else simply uses LNAV and VNAV, including my former 737 airline. Now, from here on, let's understand the difference between the two. So, LNAV and VNAV will follow your approach very accurately when they are in the approach logic, which they go into automatically when you fly an approach. Now, the approach button over here on a non-precision approach is going to put the 737 into the so-called IAN mode. Let me press that for a second. Then you can see down here we've got final approach course and glide path armed, rather than the standard modes that you know from your typical ILS, which are LNAV and which are localizer and glide slope. So things are a little bit different here in the 737. Also, did I just get it in a single channel for no reason? Well, here we go, back in a command mode. Okay, so for the IAN mode, so when pressing approach and when you use final approach course and glide path modes, what the airplane does is basically to compute its own ILS-like approach. And here is the key: ILS-like means basically the plane is going to fly the approach, well, exactly like it would fly an ILS. And ILSs are usually straight in. They cannot follow any curves. An MLS would be capable of doing so, but MLS in the real world are pretty much non-existent, so they are nothing of our concern today. Now, as I just mentioned, the IAN mode can basically fly the extended center line that you see down here. It basically flies this, regardless whatever the approach you programmed in your computer actually is. So the IAN mode is always and necessarily going to fly a self-computed profile and not the approach trajectory that you've got within your FMS. For that reason, IAN is only appropriate for straight-in approaches where so published, and not for flying actual RNAV approaches which are based on your FMS navigation. We can see it right now. We've got an offset approach over here, and if we flew the IAN mode it would simply bring us in over here, which, as you can see, is absolutely not appropriate for the situation that we're in. Alright, so if we continue this approach all the way down, then we are quickly going to see that LNAV and VNAV are perfectly capable of flying an approach like that. Alright, so let's continue down, make sure that it stays in VNAV path mode, which it is in right now. We're going to select the altitude down to the minimum plus 100 feet, so we're going to choose 4,000 over here on our MCP, and we can simply fly it down like that. Now, many of you are unaware of how the MCP altitude needs to be handled on non-precision approaches. Well, that is actually rather easy. Now, my former airline had a rule that whenever you fly a non-precision approach, you put your MCP altitude down to the minimum plus 100, and when you're 300 feet above the minimum or 1,000 feet above the airport, you would go ahead and select your missed approach altitude. Now, for us today, we can simplify things as well. As soon as we are at least 300 below the missed approach altitude, we can go ahead and select it. So now we can put it up, and the missed approach altitude on this one here is 8,000. So, as you can see, now the airplane continues to descend nicely on VNAV, even though we are actually below the target MCP altitude. So now comes the big question, where are we going to come out? How accurate do LNAV and VNAV actually fly that approach? You can see visibility really isn't that good in Tegucigalpa today. Checked, but we can see a couple of lights in the front over there, and those are actually our runway lights, so we can continue the approach. I'll simply let the autopilot in over here all the way to the minimum U side, and you will be surprised as to what kind of accuracy LNAV and VNAV can actually fly you down on the approach. Alright, disconnect. I'm gonna do that very last part here manually, like so.
100, 50, 40, 30, 20, 10.
Okay, manual brakes. And here we go, that's basically it already. As you can see, LNAV and VNAV do work to a rather nice extent on your approaches, and it is really easy to fly the 737 down with them. And once again, to emphasize, only when you've got an approach that is basically an extended center line, like many LNAV approaches certainly are, on those you can use the approach mode, but as soon as they include any kind of offset, you need to use LNAV and VNAV for the approach. The approach mode is not available for approaches which are not directly straight in. So, that's it for this video. Thank you very much for watching. I hope that you learned something today, and I hope that I could enhance your understanding of the 737's autopilot system. I'm looking forward to see you all again on the next one. In the meantime, enjoy flying your non-precision approaches, and if you liked the video, be sure to leave a like in YouTube as well, as it does help with the algorithms. And if you are interested in more, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thank you very much for watching. I see you all again on the next one, and if you really loved my video, I would appreciate a small donation through the Buy Me Coffee link in the video description below. Thank you for watching, and see you all again on the next one.